Welcome back to the deep dive. This time we're looking at Morepen Laboratories and their second quarter results for fiscal year 25. We've got their investor presentation, pretty visual, I gotta say. We've got the press releases with all the, official numbers and even the auditor's reports, just to be extra careful. So think of us as your financial detectives. Really digging through it all to figure out what's the story behind Morepen's performance this quarter. So are you ready to see what we've uncovered?
Let's dive in.
Okay, so the first thing that really stood out to me was how much Morepen's celebrating this, big picture success. They're reporting strong growth, pretty much across the board. They're beating last year's numbers and even their own performance from earlier this year.
Yeah, it's more than just doing well.
Ugh.
It's significant jumps in revenue, EBITDA, pre-tax and after-tax profits. I mean, to explain EBITDA a little bit, that's earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. It's a measure of a company's operating profitability. And the fact that Morepen is seeing such strong growth, across all these key metrics, well, it really shows that this company is performing well.
Right, right. I was so focused on the percentages, I didn't really think about what it actually means for the business. It's not just a one-time thing either. Morepen is on a roll. They're celebrating their highest EBITDA for 4 quarters in a row, actually. But this is where it gets, I think, even more interesting. They're making a strategic shift. It's kind of like they've decided to trade in their old reliable car for something a bit more, high performance.
Yeah.
They're moving away from those lower margin domestic API customers.
Yeah. API stands for active pharmaceutical ingredient. So essentially, it's the raw materials for making drugs. And by shifting away from that domestic market and focusing on higher value products, export markets, Morepen is really putting themselves in a good position for a profitable future.
Okay, so it's not just about selling more, it's about selling smarter.
Right.
And we see that reflected in their revenue breakdown, right? Medical devices now bringing in 30% of their revenue, up from 26% in fiscal year 24. And then their export market share is also on the rise, which again, just helps that profitability. So then that brings us to, I think, another really fascinating point, which is the growth in their medical devices segment. What really stood out to you there?
Oh, so many things. But I think just the fact that they have 13 million glucometers installed, that's a lot of people relying on Morepen to help manage their blood sugar.
Wow, yeah, that's a lot.
And they've sold over 1.7 billion test strips just in the past year. So that's a lot of repeat customers.
Right.
Which is fantastic for their bottom line.
Yeah, that really stood out to me too. I was like, wow, that is a lot of repeat customers, and that's got to be, good for business.
Exactly. That focus on customer base with repeat purchase is it's a great thing to see. And it really speaks to this ever-growing awareness of personal health. And it's not just about diabetes either.
Right.
Their sales for blood pressure monitors are also climbing significantly. So it seems that people are really taking their health into their own hands.
Yeah. But Morepen's not just reacting to this trend. They're really thinking ahead, right? They've ordered these dedicated SMT lines to make sure that they've got a steady supply of blood pressure monitors and they can keep those prices competitive. Now, SMT, by the way, that stands for surface mount technology. Basically, what that means is they're investing in that advanced manufacturing to keep up with demand. And it's they're building a bigger oven to bake more cookies because they know everyone's going to want one.
That is a fantastic analogy.
Yeah.
Speaking of knowing what people want, Morepen isn't forgetting about their roots. They're still a big player in that API market.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to exports.
Right. They're leading the pack in 6 key APIs, and they hold the #1 market share for loratadine, desloratadine, and montelukast. Now, I have to admit, I did have to look up what those are, but they're medications for allergies and asthma, which are, pretty common conditions, so it makes sense that Morepen is doing so well in those areas.
And their reach is extending to over 80 countries now. They've added 80 new customers in just the first half of this fiscal year alone.
Wow.
So it's not just about, growing, it's about strategically expanding that global footprint.
Right, and to do that, they've invested in this brand new massive formulation facility, and it meets international standards, which is really important. And it's paying off, right? Their exports to Europe, which has, some of the strictest regulations, those have gone up 60%.
Wow, that's impressive.
So that's a big jump.
Now, while that global expansion is really impressive, I think it's really important to also highlight their dedication to innovation.
Yeah.
They're not just expanding their reach, they're constantly improving and adding to their product line.
Yeah, and I was excited to see that they've introduced these new products like nebulizers, which are for respiratory issues, and then ortho supports. And then they're also developing new APIs, right? Those active ingredients we were talking about earlier. And one that really caught my eye was resmetirom for non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So it seems like they're really like tuned into these emerging health trends.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
And they're also developing bembopotic acid, which is a new type of cholesterol reducer.
Yeah.
So all of these moves really show that they're not just, sitting back and relaxing. They're actively investing in the future of healthcare.
Yeah. And speaking of the future, we can't forget about Morepen 2.0, their growth plan.
Right, their grand vision. So they're aiming for a 20% CAGR, which is compound annual growth rate. Basically saying, we want to grow by 20% every year for the next several years. So it's ambitious, to say the least.
Yeah.
They're also targeting 5,000 crore in revenue by 2030, and then a 10% PAT, which is profit after tax.
Yeah.
So that tells you that they're not just focused on growth, but they want that growth to be profitable.
Right. Now, those are some pretty ambitious goals. So let's really dig into these financials and see if their current performance, supports those aspirations. And that's where all those detailed reports that we mentioned come in. So what was the first thing that jumped out at you when you looked at those statements?
Well, the first thing I noticed was just the scale of their operations. They're not just one company. They've got a whole family of 6 subsidiaries that contribute to their success.
Right. You got the parent company, Morepen Laboratories, and then there's Dr. Morepen Limited, Total Care Limited, Morepen Devices Limited, Morepen RX Ltd, and then even a foreign subsidiary, Morepen Bioinc. So it's quite the network.
Yeah.
It's all laid out in their consolidated financial results statement for the quarter and half year ended at September 30th, 2024. Talk about a complex business structure.
It is. It is.
But it's it's good to see all those pieces working together.
Mhm.
And while these consolidated reports kind of give us this bird's eye view, we also have separate standalone financial statements for Morepen Laboratories, which is the parent company. So it's like looking through a microscope to see the individual cells.
Exactly.
But both the consolidated and standalone statements are telling the same story, which is, significant growth. Their income from operations, which basically means their core business activities, those have been steadily increasing. So it's not just about bringing in more money. It's about, how they're using that money.
Right.
Morepen's clearly committed to investing in its future. And the statements of assets and liabilities really show that, right? We see significant investments in property, plant, and equipment, as well as ongoing capital work in progress.
Right.
So it's like they're building a bigger and better factory to house all these grand plans.
Exactly. And that aligns perfectly with, their growth strategy, especially those plans to expand their API and formulation production capacities. It's one thing to talk the talk, but Morepen is definitely walking the walk.
Yeah, absolutely. And it seems like they've got the financial fuel to do it. Their cash flow statement, which gives us a glimpse into, the financial health of a company, it shows they're generating positive cash flow from their operations. That's a good sign, right?
Oh, yeah, that's the sign of a healthy business. It means that they can, fund their investments and their growth without relying too heavily on, borrowing money.
Okay, so speaking of financing, Morepen recently completed a qualified institutional placement, or QIP, for 200 crore rupees. So that's a significant injection of capital, and that just, further strengthens their financial position.
Yeah, it's like they just received a big boost of energy to fuel all those plans.
Exactly. But like any good detective story, there's got to be a twist, right? There's always a twist. So the reports also highlight, a few potential areas of concern. What really caught your eye on that front?
Well, one thing I noticed was that their inventory levels have increased. Quite a bit, actually.
Yeah.
And that could signal potential challenges in, managing their supply chain.
Okay. Interesting.
It's like having a warehouse full of ingredients, but not being able to get them to the bakery fast enough to make those cookies.
Yeah, that's a good point. It'll be interesting to see how they address this, moving forward. Another thing that stood out to me was that while their overall profitability has improved, their gross profit margins have dipped slightly in recent quarters.
Right. And their investor presentation did mention that import prices have started to stabilize. So that might be putting some pressure on those margins.
Okay. So, not all sunshine and roses. But it's important to remember that these financial statements are really just like snapshots in time. They give us valuable clues. But we need to consider them alongside other information like their growth strategy, market conditions, and, overall industry trends. It's like piecing together a puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
So now we've got this financial picture. Let's dive a little deeper into like Morepen's strategic moves, particularly in their medical devices segment, which, seems to be doing really well.
Yeah.
So what strategies are they using to drive that success?
Well, their investor presentation really highlights their customer-centric approach.
Yeah.
They're not just selling products, they're building relationships and fostering loyalty, especially with those repeat purchases that we talked about. It's like they're creating a club of loyal customers who trust Morepen to meet their health needs.
Smart move. It's much easier to keep, your existing customers happy than to constantly be chasing new ones. So what else are they doing to like stay ahead in this pretty competitive market?
Well, they've really emphasized their strong backward integration in manufacturing.
Yeah.
Which means that they control a larger portion of their supply chain. So this gives them greater control over quality, over costs, and allows them to, offer those competitive prices.
And speaking of competitive pricing, their investment in those dedicated SMT lines for blood pressure monitors, that really shows that they're serious about staying ahead of the game. It's like they're building a faster racetrack to outpace the competition.
I like that.
And then they're not just sticking with like the same old products. They're actively expanding their product portfolio, which again is a really smart move. They added nebulizers and ortho supports to their lineup. So that helps them reach a wider market, right? It's like they're adding more tools to their healthcare toolkit. And do you remember that Diwali campaign with Kartik Aaryan for Bernal?
Yes, I do.
So it seems like they're leveraging brand recognition and really smart marketing to break into that consumer health space.
Exactly.
So that diversification into consumer health, that could be a game changer, right? It creates new revenue streams and it reduces their reliance on those more, traditional pharmaceutical products. So it's like they're adding another lane to their highway of success.
That's a great way to put it.
But, venturing into new territories always comes with its own set of challenges.
Oh, absolutely.
So what do you see there?
Well, they're going to have to, navigate the regulatory maze. They'll need to build strong distribution networks and then really establish themselves in this new arena, which is very competitive. So it won't be easy, but with their track record, their vision, I'm pretty optimistic.
Yeah. Okay, so let's shift our focus back to their pharmaceutical business, specifically their dominance in the API market. This is really where their expertise shines, being consistently ranked as like category leaders in those 6 key APIs. That's really a testament to their quality and their market penetration. They're not just participating, they're leading the charge.
Absolutely. And their strategic focus on those high-value APIs and their expansion, like aggressive expansion into international markets, those are really the driving forces behind their growth in this segment.
And those export figures, that's the proof.
Yeah,
Their investor presentation emphasizes, this substantial increase in export market share, especially in those highly regulated markets like Europe. That tells you they're not cutting corners. They're meeting the highest global standards.
For sure.
And they're also actively developing new APIs, targeting like those high demand areas, things like cardiovascular disease and metabolic disorders. So it's like they're constantly scouting for new territory to conquer.
And their pipeline includes, some really promising candidates like resmetirom for non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which is a condition that's, increasing globally.
Yeah, that's a smart move, right? Targeting those high growth therapeutic areas with those like significant unmet needs. That sets them up for long-term success. It's like they're anticipating that next like big wave in healthcare.
Exactly. But, we have to remember that the pharmaceutical industry, it's a tough game. It's complex, it's competitive, and it's constantly evolving.
Right. So what are some of the challenges that you see them potentially facing?
Well, I think, they're going to be facing competition from generic drugs. They're always evolving regulations. And the cost of drug development just keeps increasing.
Yeah.
So it's really an uphill battle.
It is, but Morepen's track record, their strategic focus, and, that commitment to innovation, I think those things give them a fighting chance.
Hmm.
And those recent investments in expanding their API and formulation production capacities, that really shows that they're confident that they can win this battle. Okay, so let's bring it all back to their grand vision, Morepen 2.0. Their goal of hitting 5,000 crore in revenue by 2030 and maintaining that 20% CAGR. It's a bold statement.
It's a moonshot.
It is. It is.
While they haven't, give us a step-by-step guide on exactly how they're going to get there, we can definitely see their game plan unfolding.
Mm-hmm. What do you see?
Well, their focus on high-value markets, both domestically and internationally, is a key part of that plan.
Okay.
They're also, aggressively expanding their product portfolio, venturing into those new therapeutic areas, and they're really beefing up those manufacturing capabilities.
Right.
It's like they're building a rocket ship to reach that destination.
Yeah, I like that.
And their commitment to R&D, especially in developing, new APIs and formulations, that's going to be the fuel that propels them forward.
Okay.
Plus, they're not underestimating the power of a strong brand and smart marketing. It's all about creating that compelling story and convincing the world to join them on that journey.
It is. It is. But reaching those ambitious targets, it's going to take more than just, planning and execution.
Oh, absolutely.
They're going to have to adapt to those unforeseen challenges and navigate a constantly, changing industry.
It's like setting sail on an epic voyage, knowing that there will be storms and calm seas along the way.
Right.
They're going to need to keep a steady hand on the wheel, adjust their course as needed, and maintain a clear vision of their destination.
And probably, most importantly, they need to keep their crew informed, keep them engaged. So that means communicating, really clearly and transparently with investors, with customers, with employees.
Exactly.
It's all about building that shared sense of purpose.
Yeah.
And keeping everyone excited.
Well said. Achieving Morepen 2.0, it's a massive undertaking.
Yeah.
But Morepen has a history of exceeding expectations. And they've got a clear vision for the future. So it'll be really fascinating to see how the story unfolds.
Yeah, I think so too.
So we've seen Morepen's ambitious goals and the strategic moves they're making to achieve them. But like any journey, there might be some bumps in the road. What potential challenges do you see that might, slow them down?
Well, the first one that comes to mind is competition. The pharmaceutical and medical device world, it's a bit like a crowded dance floor. Everyone's jostling for space, for attention. So how can Morepen stand out and avoid, getting stepped on?
That's a great point. The industry is, packed with players, big and small, all trying to get that market share. Morepen can't just, rest on their laurels. They need to be constantly innovating, refining their products, finding ways to, differentiate themselves from the crowd. It's like they got to come up with a new dance move that everyone's going to want to copy.
Right, right. But even with the best dance moves, they still need to play by the rules.
Yeah.
Regulatory hurdles are a constant concern for pharmaceutical companies. So how do you see those potentially impacting Morepen's progress?
Oh, regulatory compliance is essential in this industry. It's like having a strict bouncer at the door of that dance floor, making sure that everyone meets the dress code.
Right,
More
yeah.
people needs to stay ahead of the curve, making sure that they're meeting all the requirements in their target markets, especially those with high standards like Europe and the U.S.
Okay, so it's not just about having a great product. It's about having a product that's, approved and welcomed in every market they want to enter. So let's not dwell on the challenges.
Yeah.
Every obstacle presents an opportunity. So what are some exciting prospects on the horizon for Morepen?
Well, I think one of the most promising opportunities is their focus on these high-growth markets. It's like they're scoping out new dance floors where everyone's eager to learn new steps
Right.
by expanding into regions with, increase in healthcare spending and a growing demand for, quality pharmaceuticals and medical devices. They can tap into those fresh revenue streams and really keep that momentum going.
Right, and their success in Europe already shows that they've got the moves for that international expansion. But what about new dance partners? Could their foray into consumer health open up like a whole new world of possibilities?
Absolutely. It's like adding a whole new genre of music to their repertoire.
Okay.
The consumer health market is booming, and Morepen has the brand recognition and the marketing savvy to really make a splash. And they've already, dipped their toes in the water with campaigns like that with Kartik Aaryan for Bernal.
Right, right. Speaking of shaking things up, how can Morpen leverage technology to, stay ahead of the curve?
Well, technology is like the DJ spinning the latest tracks. It's what
Yeah.
keeps the dance floor energized, keeps the party going.
Okay.
More Open can use technology to, streamline their manufacture and make their supply chain more efficient,
Yeah.
and even personalize their products to meet, individual needs. It's about creating like a customized dance experience for every customer.
hmm And don't forget data analytics. That's like having a spotlight. It helps them see which moves are working and which ones need a little tweaking so
Yeah.
they can use data to make smarter decisions, to connect better with customers, and to, keep their operations running smoothly.
Data is like the rhythm section of their success. It provides the beat and the tempo.
I like that. Okay, but let's not forget that a good party isn't just about, the music and the dancing. It's also about creating a positive atmosphere and being a responsible host. In today's world, that means prioritizing sustainability. So what is Morphin doing to make sure that their operations are environmentally and socially responsible?
You're absolutely right. It's not enough to just throw a great party. You got to be a good neighbor too.
Right.
While their reports don't specifically detail their sustainability initiatives, we can see hints of that commitment, like in their focus on quality, on compliance, and on innovation.
So it's like they're using, eco-friendly decorations and making sure that everyone gets home safely.
Exactly. Their adherence to those strict regulatory standards, especially in the pharmaceutical industry, that suggests a real dedication to ethical and responsible manufacturing practices.
hmm And their efforts in developing those new APIs and formulations to address unmet medical needs, I think that shows that they're thinking about the well-being of the global community.
They are. They are.
But there's always room for improvement,
All right,
right?
sure.
What do you see there?
Well, Morepin could definitely enhance their transparency. Maybe by publishing a comprehensive sustainability report
Yeah.
that outlines their environmental and social initiatives. It's like sharing their party playlist with everyone and inviting them to see behind the scenes.
Okay, I like that. Now for the grand finale. Let's talk about Morpen's ambitious growth plan, Morepen 2.0. They're aiming for 20% CAGR and 5,000 crore in revenue by 2030. It's like they're planning the biggest, most epic dance party ever.
It really is a bold vision, and achieving those targets is going to require a massive effort. How likely do you think they are to pull it off?
Well, they've got a track record of exceeding expectations. They're like the dance crew that always surprises the judges with their innovative routines. And their strategic focus and that commitment to innovation are certainly pointing them in the right direction.
Yeah,
But as you said earlier, they can't get complacent.
exactly.
What do they need to keep in mind?
They need to be agile, adaptable, and, willing to change their choreography as needed.
Okay.
They need to keep an eye on the competition, anticipate those changes in the music, and be ready.
So while achieving more Mopen 2.0 won't be easy, they've got the talent, they've got the vision, they've got the drive. I think they can make it happen, but it's going to be a wild ride.
It's definitely a story worth following.
Now, let's shift gears for a moment. Remember, this deep dive is all about giving you the insights you need to form your own conclusions. So with everything we've discussed about More Open, what stands out to you as the most important takeaway? We've covered a lot of ground today. More Apen's impressive financials, those strategic shifts, and of course their grand plan for growth, More Apen 2.0. But now, it's time to leave you with something to think about, something to kind of ponder as you continue your own exploration of Morepen Laboratories and really the pharmaceutical industry as a whole.
Yeah, we've talked about their dance moves, their expansion plans, their focus on those high growth markets. It's all very exciting. But I think the most important question to ask is, what impact could Morepen's journey have on the Indian pharmaceutical and medical device landscape?
That's a big question. So, will they become this dominant force shaping the industry's future? Or will they hit those unexpected obstacles, fierce competition that could really change their path?
It's really hard to say for sure. The pharmaceutical industry is always changing. It's influenced by government regulations, global health trends, even technological advancements, right?
It's like trying to predict what's the next big dance craze.
Exactly.
But, I think Morphin's story gives us a really fascinating glimpse into those dynamics.
It highlights the opportunities and the challenges that are out there for companies in this space.
Mhm.
And it really emphasizes how important it is to stay, agile, innovative, and responsive to an environment that's always changing.
Right. So we encourage you to keep exploring more up in laboratories. Stay informed about, what's happening in the industry. Keep an eye on their progress and form your own conclusions about, what kind of impact they might have. And this deep dive has hopefully given you the tools and the insights to do just that.
Yeah, I think so. We've really looked at their financial performance, explored their strategic moves, and considered those challenges and opportunities they're facing.
We have. So hopefully this has, made you a little bit more curious and given you that knowledge to really dive deeper into the world of pharmaceuticals and medical devices.
hmm Remember, knowledge is power. And the more you understand about this complex and dynamic industry, the better equipped you'll be to make those informed decisions,
Yeah.
whether you're an investor, a consumer, or just someone who's curious.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it insightful and engaging.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.